cities all across the U.S. Fargo, for instance, as we were talking about, who has the biggest chapter of 400 members that come out. We'll jump right into it. Today we have, I met Amanda, but we have Simon. Yep. Simon, you'll be presenting.
All right, yes, I will.
Okay. Yeah, so we have Simon from OptimumHQ, and he'll tell you a little bit about the business solutions platform software that they use to help out businesses. So let's welcome them today.
Thank you. Woo. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here for 1 Million Cups today. So a little bit about Optimum and who I am. So I'm a startup founder and CEO of OptimumHQ. Optimum supplies business solutions without the need for software development. So how did I get here? I've actually been doing startups for quite a while. My first startup was back in 2001, was a software consulting agency where we helped companies such as American Express with travel booking platforms, Apple, so anything in your mobile chip devices, that runs through all of our software and its testing. Intel with solid-state drive technology, card member profiling systems, a whole slew of different things, all the way to ESPN where we did our fantasy football algorithms. So kind of through that experience, kind of realizing that businesses of any size, everywhere from the enterprise level on down, have a lot of similar type issues around their software. And not always does it need specifically custom software application or custom software development. So being kind of who I am, I got tired of rebuilding and redoing the same kind of things all the time from a software consulting perspective. And so I started building the Optimum platform back in 2012. So my consulting company grew to around 50, 60 or so people, and I sold it in 2014 after spinning Optimum off into its own company. I had to become the CTO of the acquiring company for 2 years, so I kind of got my handcuffs off. So you'll see in effectively January of 2017 is when we really kicked off Optimum. Over the last 20 months, we've had fantastic growth. So we started from basically zero to now we're well over $1 million in ARR, so we're doing pretty well in the last 20 months, and this kind of what we are. So what does Optimum do? How does it really work? So when you're doing a startup, and really kind of any level of growth, you find yourself solving different solutions. So you'll start with, obviously you need a website, so you don't need a Wix or a Weebly type solution. Or maybe you need a blog and you've got your WordPress. And quickly you see that the applications you need and things you need to develop keep growing and you keep adding more and more. So you need an e-commerce system. And then of course you need your email platforms and your calendars. You need to worry about your QuickBooks and your accounting and your invoicing and payroll. And then you think, well, we really need a CRM, so we need to get Salesforce. And they say, we really need to communicate to our customers, so we can do MailChimp, or we're going to do email campaigns and contact out. And then you want to say, we would need to start surveying our customers. And we need to find out, do market research. So you do SurveyMonkey, and then you want people to do calendaring, scheduling appointments. And then maybe you got some projects going on, so you're trying to figure out stuff between Trello and boards and that kind of stuff. And then you maybe start getting bigger contracts and clients, and you start needing things like DocuSign. And of course, Google Docs. We all know Google Docs for Exchange and spreadsheets and all that kind of fun stuff. And now you've got all these different applications, and then tools like Zapier come out. It's like, hey, we can quickly integrate these two disparate solutions with APIs. And that solves some of the problems, but they're kind of loose and they're not quite built correctly exactly how you want it. You always have to modify it and update it. And we find ourselves using Excel to bridge all the gaps for all the stuff that the softwares don't do for us. And then we find systems like Asana, where we bigger projects and whatnot, managing larger teams. And now you've got more clients, they've got tickets, you've got case management with Zendesk. And of course now you've got your time slips tracking for all your people managing your help desk. And finally, Domo, which is a business intelligence tool, is trying to figure out how you can figure this all out. So how a business grows, and like I said earlier, you'll solve these problems multiple times throughout the growth of a business, everywhere from 10 employees to 20 to 50 to 100 to 1,000. This kind of stuff keeps happening. So there's got to be a better way. So that's what OptimumHQ really serves to do. So OptimumHQ can replace every single one of those applications that's customized to the particular company that needs to use it. There's a lot of stuff going on this slide, but effectively what this is showing is how much time and efficiency is wasted. So when employees and people are copying stuff from one system to the other, or maintaining their apps, or doing all these kinds of things, is not really focusing on what their core business is. So companies have a couple options. They can upgrade to an ERP type system, which is like an SAP or a NetSuite, which hopes to achieve all those kinds of things. They can try and customize the software themselves through either software development or through manual processes, workarounds, Excel documents, etc. Or they can say, it's time for us to do a custom piece of software. So unfortunately, custom software costs a ton of money, depending on the size of your company. Could be anywhere from $40,000 up to hundreds of millions of thousands of dollars. So what Optimum does, it allows a business, a non-programmer, kind of a savvy business analyst, business solutions architect type individual, to build a solution based on the concept of what their data looks like and what their workflows around that data are. Allowing them to focus on their customer, on their business growth, on what they do. Because the core business in most businesses actually, if you get down to it, they don't think that what they do is really that unique or that complex. When you first start talking to them, they'll say, oh my gosh, our systems are so complex, we use this for this and this for this. But what they really get down from a business perspective, it's actually typically quite simple. And it's really made overly complicated because of how their different software tools work and how they're forced to interact with it. So as an example, if we need to simply send an invoice to this customer and we want to use QuickBooks, okay, we need to set up the account and we need to add all these address fields, which we might or might not need. We need contacts, which we might or might not need. We need to create invoice lines, all these kinds of things. We just want to send an invoice out. So if you can get rid of all the stuff that a company doesn't really need, you can simplify that software immensely, because we're really just focusing on whatever that data set is. So what Optimum has been able to do by following this type of idea is allow us, through either ourselves or our channel partners or the companies themselves, to build these solutions. The experience of our customers over the last 20 months, one of them experienced 32% increase in their efficiency across their business. This is an interesting one from a manufacturer here in the Valley. They had had a few different ERP implementations that failed, and one of their biggest problems was something that we said, let's put this in Optimum, and it was actually solved in 5 hours after another company failed after 3 months. So it's pretty cool what it can do. One of our biggest customers, enterprise level, estimated they served over 200,000 man hours of time in a year, equaling about $5 million, just by getting rid of all their disparate processes. So how does this really work? So it's the concept of a data set and a workflow. So a data set could be anything from a database to an Excel spreadsheet to a web service API call to really anything. And what is the workflow? The workflow is something that either generates that data or works off of that data. It also works with role-based. So in a company, you've got multiple levels of users. So you might have administrative users, you have operational staff, you have sales staff. So they have different views into what their systems look like. They have different needs. So we start with the sales, works all the way through accounting. It's going to touch a whole number of different departments within that process. Single platform, single pane of glass. So we said we get rid of all those other systems and they can log into a single system and they see exactly what they need to do that day. Everything from lead generation that's tied into the website, or website CMS, or CRM, or invoicing, or billing, or automatically sending text messages, to emails, inbound, all that kind of stuff, all kind of handled for you. And from a costing perspective, where companies are typically spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands on ERP type solutions, the small business friendly platform starts around $200, and enterprise level clients, so we have some clients in the healthcare services industry which require HIPAA compliance, they have an isolated environment, and that starts at a higher price, obviously. But we also meet all of our HIPAA compliance, SOC 16, SA 16, 18, SOC 2, so we're all obviously audited from third parties regularly as well, because companies are maintaining their entire business on this platform. Thank you.
I understand correctly, you won't need any of the other services at all?
Correct.
Or you, okay. And then what's the total value if someone were to go and pay for all the other accounts versus you guys? It's $200 to start off, but you did your Zapier, your Zendesk, you did everything else. What would the total cost of that be?
So the cost is per seat. So you can think it's really a platform that you can build anything on. So the $200 a month gets you up to 5 users. So if you're a small department or a small business and you have 5 users, your cost is going to be $200 a month, period. So irrespective of what you want to put into the platform. So we also have modules that can be installed. Saying you want a simple CRM module you don't want to build from scratch or you don't want to define, you can use a CRM module, or you can use a financial module that comes in. But you can fully modify that and customize it yourself. The only things that would be included or would be add charges if you want to send text messages. Obviously, there's a charge per text message, or if you want to tie in your phone lines and record phone calls, there's VoIP charges and whatnot. But beyond that, it's one price.
So how much would it cost if I did Constant Contact, Zendesk, and all those other accounts that you showed per month, per employee, or per seat that you said?
It could vary. So each one of those. So Salesforce itself, I know some companies that are using Salesforce that are spending $1,200 per person per month, and that's just for Salesforce. So you add in all those other things, you're talking thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially for larger companies, and certainly probably thousands of dollars for small business.
Pretty cool.
What size is your main user? Like what size company is your main user?
So our largest companies, so we've got 2 in the billion revenue area. The majority of them are in, I shouldn't say the majority. We probably have 6 or 7 between 100 and 500 million, and the rest of them, which is another 20 or so, or anywhere from, they just did a startup to small business manufacturers, that type of stuff. So typically, the sweet spot for us isn't necessarily the size of the company, but the size of the problems. So if it's a 2-person company and they're using 3 of those tools, if your biggest workflow issue can be solved by saying, "Hey Chuck, can you fix that for me?" Optimum is probably too much for you, right? But you get to a level, it's like, oh, now we got a team of 5 or 10 people, or even 5 people. We've got all these different processes, and it's those what you can do through communication starts to weigh down, right? So it's really kind of where the company figures out where their processes are.
So can you walk me through the migration process for the customer? So let's say they're like, Simon, yep, we're on board, let's do this, but we have all of our other data sets and all of our other, stuff in these different programs that we're using. How do we migrate that over to yours?
So what a company would typically do is, very few people or companies out there think or realize that software like this exists. So we're kind of creating a brand new category. So for them to say, "Oh my gosh, I can get rid of all of this," their first reaction is, "No way. There's no way you can do it." Right. And that's everybody's typical reaction. Every single one of our customers says that, or has said that in the past. But then they'll come through and they say, "Well, let's just try this one little thing." So they'll take one piece that's either being underserved or not served in one of those areas, and we'll say, "Let's do this." So a couple hours later, that's kind of done, and they're saying, "Okay, well, what else can we do?" So it's not, because it's super scary for a company to come in and say, "Hey, we're going to throw away these 20 applications like that." Right. It's really kind of, let's chunk it, let's do that, and then they do this, and then they do this, and then they do this, and ideally, they'll be taking it on themselves, so they can grow with it as quickly as they want or as slowly as they want.
Okay, so like let's say for email marketing or something, they try that first. They call up Constant Contact. They say, "We want to get rid of you guys, and we're going to use this now." They try that out for however long they're satisfied. Then they move on to the next piece of the tree, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So some typical type engagements. We had one who was a value-added reseller. They sell other people's equipment. So their biggest problem was commissioning their sales agents. So this was probably a 20 or so person firm, and it was taking them upwards of 3 months to do commissions, because they would say, "Hey, we're going to get this stuff from Dell, and we're going to get this stuff from EMC," and they'd quote it out, and their customers would decide what they want to buy, and they would ship it. and what they quoted out, the prices would vary slightly between what they quoted and what the distributor actually charged them. So that process of reconciling was taking them months and months. They took it down in Optimum down to 7 days. So once that was done, they said, well, what else can we do? We've got this suite at the Suns Arena. I wonder if we can start putting our inventory of chairs in there so it's not either going empty or all employees. So they opened up to their sales contacts first, and then 3 days before it opens up to employees to book the seats and whatnot. And then they started doing all their financials and all that other kind of stuff as well. So they kind of did a natural progression from that perspective.
Okay. What's usually the biggest problem your customers have when they come to you? Like, I was using Constant Contact and therefore I'm tired, I'm coming to you guys, or...
The biggest thing is probably the headache. They're sick of modifying their processes to fit what the software does. So they'll find themselves, like I said earlier, they'll start having Excel spreadsheets or Google Docs, which is really augmenting everything they're doing. And they've got half the process sitting in the system it's supposed to be in, and half the process sitting in Excel, and there's emails going back and forth, and just like they just can't manage it anymore. So we had one company that had, I think, 10,000 some spreadsheets. They did 10,000 trips a year. And each trip has, that was like procured travel, so they would do a trip and 100 people would go on this trip. So they were managing that all in spreadsheets. And that procurement process was a hotel, and it was, we're all gonna go do a Sea-Doo thing, and then we're gonna do a night party, and all these different contractors and vendors. It was just crazy. So it really varies company by company. One of the things that it's interesting as well is that obviously we're a software as a service, so we're an online-based company. Excuse me. So one of the things that I lost what I was saying. Sorry. Maybe it'll come back.
He hasn't had his coffee yet. Neither have I. Goodness, can't talk either.
Yeah. So, has there been any pieces that are missing from your platform that people have said, like, we'd like this feature and it doesn't quite exist, or it's not quite up to what they need, and how is that refined? Do you just do it by per customer basis? And
so obviously, like everybody else, we've got a roadmap of things that we're developing to make it better. So it's really clumsy the way this works. Let's see how we can make that better. So things come up that says customers might want, maybe it's a new way to disposition one workflow to another, or it creates multiple data sets versus one data set type thing. So we've got a number of those kind of things on our roadmap that we kind of roll out on a regular basis. So it's hard to say that, the software is never going to be done from that perspective, because we want to keep adding more and more value. One thing we don't really say we do is, we're not going to be the beautiful website. So you're not going to build a beautiful website, but you can power a beautiful website. So you might have a custom design and that pulls its content from Optimum, if that makes sense.
Okay. So my only worry would be, you go to like Salesforce, Constant Contact, and they're a one-trick pony, right? But that one-trick pony could be the best in the world. So how you guys compete from value? Is your value proposition the fact that you've got a little bit of everything, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none?
So that actually reminded me of what I was going to say earlier. So thank you.
I'm really
There we go. You guys are really in
appreciate
sync.
So the biggest thing lately, I'd say over the last 5-10 years in software companies is kind of like that concept of find your niche and get rich, right? So what that's done is created dozens and dozens and dozens of these vertical pieces of software. It says, hey, this is what I do, this is all I do, and that's great, and they do it really well. But what that's doing to their customers is it's making their customers say, okay, well, that means I've got this, and that. They've got that huge slide of all these different things they're paying for across everything. None of them does all that they need, and they're augmenting that stuff inside themselves. So, but when you talk to a real business, do they really need? They don't need to have 80 different applications. This is not necessarily, Optimum's not going to be their core business. It's going to be what runs their core business. So And because we don't lock them into a specific piece of software, it says these are the lane lines you need to swim in to use our software, we let them create their workflows, additional data sets, so they're never really restricted.
So I'd imagine it's kind of like the 80-20 rule where 80% of the people only use 20% of the features on all those other ones. So might as well just go here and just use the 20%.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually there's been studies that have actually turned the 80-20 rule, basically proven it out,
Okay.
saying that only, I think 70% of software applications are never, these features are never used, ever, right? It's like if you're, even Excel. I mean, do we all know or use any of the stuff in Excel?
Yeah.
Yet every time we buy Excel, we're paying for all that stuff.
Right.
So with Optimum, it's, do I care about that? No. Let's not waste time on it. Let's not increase our complexity. Let's just do what we need to do.
And then with that, sorry, add in something on it. The 80% or 75% software that you're not using, that's in the way every single day, and every time that you're trying to do something as a business, that's gone. So if you ever look at like an instance inside of Optimum, every instance is unique as if it was a custom piece of software from the ground up, and there's some kind of navigation bar, and every single one is different, and it's only what they need. If they don't need financials on there, they aren't going to have the grayed out financials thing that, if you go and say you need to enter in something for an invoice, it's not going to make you, like Simon said, it's not going to make you go and punch in all the address information just to get to it. How many like NAs can you put in just to get to the next page? It's just exactly what you want and nothing else. And then whenever you go, okay, now I want this next step of functionality, you go and add it.
So then you have to buy the next steps. Like if I come in for $200, is it like that only gets you a couple of key functions, or like gets you every vertical from day one?
Whatever you want to do. So again, so it's not we're not a medicine cabinet where you say, hey, I need this one, I need this one, I need this one. It's really, so we do have some of those kind of pre-packaged modules, but to Kyle's point, we're not going to say, hey, everybody must have the financial module. But indeed, the financial module could be something completely different for every different person, right? So one financial person might be, I just need to know what we charge through Authorize.net or through PayPal, and I could have my list of stuff I've sold. Somebody else's financial module might be managing their purchase orders for equipment, or managing their distributors, or their financial modules for managing the payroll or the time slips or their service business. So how they use the system is completely dependent on how they want to use the system.
So $200 gets you access to every tool.
Correct.
Except your website.
Except, yeah. You
So
gotta
we
build
have
a website.
companies that manage their websites, so they'll manage their content from within Optimum, they'll manage all their forms, all the dynamic aspect of it. We'll just kick off an Optimum workflow. But we don't have a website builder. It's like, I'll put my logo here and I want my colors here. So we're more the operational side of the house. So underneath the scenes, we can push the content up and we can consume the information and we can charge the cards and we can do all that kind of stuff with an Optimum. But we're not we're not Website Tonight or Wix or anything like that.
To replace like all the PayPals and everything.
Correct.
Sweet.
So I shouldn't say we replace it. So for charge, we tie into Authorize. Like we're not a payment gateway, so we tie into Authorize.net and PayPal and that kind of stuff. But it wouldn't be a separate application.
Streamlined.
Can you talk a little bit about your I mean, you told us a little bit about your background, but your team and the background of how you guys got together, and this sounds like quite a mountain of software to build out initially, and you said you've been working on this since 2012,
Yep.
correct? So maybe just a little bit about that.
So my background is I'm a geek, so I'm a software engineer by training. Went to ASU. Go Devils. Came out from that perspective and realized that I had some unique qualities in that I could see and understand business solutions as well. So being able to leverage the software architecture and that kind of build with understanding how business runs is kind of how that started. And with my experience working with all the different companies and clients across different industries when I got into consulting and being able to draw the parallels between them, I could start seeing this all just kind of comes down to how can we make this really simple, because software does not need to be complex. Like the business people out there in the world think gosh, software people are just magicians. They're so smart, but we're not. You know, it's like, you know, it's pretty simple. You know, there's data sets and there's workflows, and if we can make that as easy for everybody to use, then everybody, the business people will be happier, marketing people will be happier, because it just does what it needs to do. And computer people, by and large, and engineers make things way overly complex. So now, as far as growing the team, so in January there was 2 of us, and then I think we're right around 20 or so people today.
Okay.
It's built up again since 2012, where we had 60 or so engineers working on it on and off back then. So we've obviously been able to leverage some stuff.
Yeah.
So you talk about all the different verticals having kind of a lot of nuance and variation within them. Do you pre-build like a framework to make that variation with your clients, or do you kind of code it out as they ask you to?
So they can effectively define what their own data sets and what their own workflows are. So we have kind of those modules I mentioned, so you can take it, but those modules are kind of open source Optimum modules, so they can say, hey, here's the data sets that create this CRM package. I've got a contact and I've got communications. And they can see the underlying data sets, and they can see the workflows that work on top of it. So they can take those modules and make them their own, and they can say, in our business, you know, all of our contacts, this is an interesting implementation that they did. They were tracking asbestos exposure on a big job site. So there's a big job, freeway construction on the Boulder, right here in Vegas, Colorado, and they found naturally occurring asbestos on the job site. So as soon as that happened, the government came down and said, oh, here's the 1,200 pages of regulations and everything you got to track. So like, what in the world are we supposed to do with this? So they signed up for Optimum, and what they were able to do is each worker had these monitors that got shipped off to a lab. All that data went back into Optimum, as well as meteorological sites, which get set up with all that data fed back into Optimum, saying, you know, what direction is the wind blowing, what's the temperature, what's the mass particulates in the air, do we need to shut down a section of the job site? So texting foremen and all that type of stuff. So none of that kind of software obviously exists. There's nothing off the shelf that does that.
Yeah.
So they were able to do it with Optimum with no custom code whatsoever. They just said, hey, we've got a data set that holds lab results. We've got a data set that takes in information from the meteorological, and based on workflows, what happens with it.
How do you find your customers?
So we're working on our go-to-market strategy.
Okay.
So most of our customers to date have been referred to us or through referral partners. We also have channel partners and integrators who are companies that are using Optimum to build solutions for their customers. So we've got kind of a combination of, and we're actually just starting to get in where we're getting customers coming in that we're like, how in the world did this people find us? So we've got customers in really across the globe right now. We're working on our go-to-market strategy as far as marketing and advertising, all kind of fun stuff. So.
Felicity, did you have a question?
I have a question about data storage. So, I mean, it sounds like you're working with some people that have some pretty hefty data. Who do you work with to house that and kind of the security of it?
Who do we work with? So the data is all stored in our systems and our servers. So unless there's a particular requirement that there's data they store, they can either call one of Optimum's APIs to get the data in or out of Optimum that way. Our data, I mean, we've got data centers and a content delivery network globally right now. So we have relational databases as well as big data, NoSQL databases behind the scenes. I don't know if that's over your head, but
A little bit.
but it's all maintained, so the customers not really need to worry about it. And they can also download their data whenever they want, export it. So, you know, we want Optimum to be as open and less risky and scary for anybody.
Are you thinking of offering any sort of like trial experiences so that people can like try it out, see what the interface is like, and get a feel for it before they like commit?
So what we would typically do is we would do a demo specifically for that person. So one of the issues around the trial, we've kind of gone back and forth on this. So the biggest issue with the trial we have right now is kind of what you can build as an Optimum. Think of it as an art gallery, right? You've got people that are doing impressionists, and you've got stills, and you've got peoples, and you've got all these different types of art that people have done with oil and canvas and all kind of stuff. So if we gave a free trial with nothing on it, it'd be like, okay, here's your canvas, and here's some paintbrushes, go paint a beautiful picture. So without having that kind of guided tour into, okay, this is how you do it, and until we can make it real easy for them to self-start, we probably start with a demo. I mean, we do demos, well, we said that's for free. But you talk to one of our sales folks, and they kind of walk you through. But that kind of blank canvas, I think, is going to be too scary for a free trial. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, I ask a lot of questions.
Go
So
for it.
as the CEO right now, what's your biggest focus?
You kind of mentioned it's our go-to-market. So there's the Arizona Innovation Challenge that we applied for. We're announced as a semi-finalist, so we're getting that. And there's like a $150,000 grant which comes out of that. So we're hoping to, if we're lucky, we'll win that, and we'll be able to leverage some of those funds towards our marketing campaigns. We've been also working with Scaling Point, which is Greg Hitt's corporation or company, and he helps companies build their go-to-market strategy. So me being kind of the propeller head geek, and I know how to build systems and I can analyze that kind of stuff, but as far as marketing or making the phone ring, if it's not a referral, I don't know. So our scaling strategy is really where we're really focusing right now. That and building out our channel partners or channel relationships, so we can get professional services that really understand a specific vertical or a specific industry really well, and they can build solutions on top of Optimum.
Go ahead.
Are there limits on the data that people can store your servers?
So yes and no. We do have record limits. So we had companies like Super Shuttle, which we were taking in all of their trips. So we allow, I think, 200,000 records per user license. So 250,000 records per the $200 a month, and then if you add a user license on top of that, they get another 200,000. So there's that. So there are limitations on the amount of data, because we can't be a free Google Drive or anything like that. So there is limitations from that side, but we also tie into S3. So if you have an S3 account that you want to store some of your data on, we can store all the data on S3, and there's no additional cost for Optimum.
So when you say record, is that a database record? What is that?
You can think of it as a database record. It could be a database record. It could be a document. Could be anything.
Okay, how did you land on that model for restricting it? Because it seems like one thing would be much, much bigger than something else in that model, and then 200,000 something small isn't as big of an issue for you, I would imagine, as 200,000 documents.
So I should clarify. So a document is, I'm thinking kind of like a JSON document, like a record.
Okay.
So think of it as a row in a database or a JSON document. It's not necessarily image or like any kind of image data or binary data. We'd want to store in the company, in the client's S3 account. So we wouldn't need to worry about storage, but they could have an account with Amazon to store that data on, or a local or another like provider.
So for their S3 account, they're paying those storage costs, not you guys. You just
Yeah,
help them
yeah.
with the porting and connectivity of it.
Correct. Yeah, we would tie into we tie into S3's or Amazon's S3 APIs and whatnot. So I think they charge like 15 cents a terabyte or something like that.
Not much.
But yeah, it makes much more sense for them to pay Amazon or find the cheaper commodity type stuff and leverage that as opposed to us charging that out.
So as part of the sales demo, do you kind of go through the roadmap of like all the workflows and see what the savings would be, what you can replace versus integrate, and then at the end you have like kind of an analysis and a quote, or?
We don't do that today, but that's a really good idea.
Write that down.
Thank you. It's typically, we're not searching for problems. We're typically finding problems together with the customer when we do it. Again, we have channel partners that do this all day with their customers as well. We have companies like a business analyst type person who understands their business can figure out these things as well. So our goal is not for Optimum to build these out. It's really for the customer or the channel partners and integrators to build it out for the customers.
And the channel partners on your team or on their team?
Either.
Okay.
So as a,
Or an independent third party, sorry.
so as a SaaS, what's your expected lifetime value of each customer?
So we've got different customer segments.
Okay.
So we've got our kind of our small business type customer. In truth, the only customers that we've really lost at this point are things that weren't a good fit. So we try to go through a vertical and we say, hey, we've got this great idea to build roofing software, so people can build roofing software. It's like, you know, it was not really the right fit. So we had two customers that we tried like, oh, that's not really a good fit because the value added from what they were doing today wasn't great enough. So they were kind of below that threshold of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, so we did that asbestos contractor, they finished that job. So now if you ever drive between Phoenix and Vegas, you go around the dam. So that was that project. So that project's over, so that customer's not here anymore. So it's hard to say for sure. And because our licensing increased by the number of users, so we've got our enterprise type clients that are, you know, paying anywhere between $15,000 or $20,000 a month for Optimum, and somebody's paying $200 a month.
Yeah.
So it varies widely right now.
And I'm just curious because for $200, I would imagine you work with a lot of startups in the smaller $200 range. That biggest fear is obviously them going bankrupt, so you got to make your money back at some point. So do you make more good money from the enterprise side?
Yeah, I mean, we make more money from the enterprise side, but also on that, the smaller $200 a month, the idea is to make them self-sufficient from day one, right? So if they can build their own workflows, and these are typically the companies that size are the people who aren't afraid to jump in and start playing, right? So they're not intimidated by the technology. So they can, you know, then it's just $200 a month, and good luck. And you can call us for help and all that kind of stuff. But so our payback is really going to come into how much our marketing initiatives cost on the enterprise of that, and that's going to be largely professional services. So if they need us to jump in, we have our own professional services team which will do implementations, and that's per hour, obviously.
Can you talk a little bit about competition?
Competition is always interesting. So there are companies out there that are doing things similar to us. So companies like Airtable, which are really trying to focus on the Excel application and taking it up. And there are companies which are like OutSystems or Appian, which are really new programming languages, which are trying to make it easier for programming. So we kind of fit in the middle. So we're not an enterprise class programming language where, you know, you need to learn and you need to buy all these infrastructure and servers, and we're not really trying to go after making Excel spreadsheets better. So we're kind of hitting that middle. We don't have a lot of direct competitors, and we've never actually run into our direct competitors in the wild, which is interesting. What we typically run into are SAPs and NetSuites. In the enterprise, so NetSuite will come through and they'll say, you know, we can't stand NetSuite for this reason, or we like NetSuite for this reason. What can we do with Optimum? And so we kind of find our competition in kind of the verticals instead.
Sure.
So we'll go in and we'll go head to head against here, and then they'll realize, so you can beat Constant Contact or Marketo or whatever you're doing here, but I can also do all this other stuff. So that's kind of where we fit in.
So I know you're probably heading to weeds go-to-market strategy right now, but what's the like ultimate vision for your company? And maybe you're at the ultimate vision because you've been working at it for 5 years, but where's the next step? Where's that around the corner that you're trying to go?
So the ultimate vision is, so we really want to change the way businesses use software. So that's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So software is simple, it does not need to be complex. And so many companies have made it so unbelievably complex. And with businesses utilizing all these different pieces of software to do their day-to-day lives, if we can change the way businesses think about this type of software, that's the ultimate vision. And for people to think that, you know, software does not need to be, it doesn't need to be a, you know, magician behind the scenes or some genius sitting behind a keyboard. It's really just, you know, simply data sets and workflows getting things done.
But you're the magician.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the last question we usually ask is, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? What can we do to help OptimumHQ?
So I mean, there's so much cool stuff going on in our community. Whether you're a SaaS company or a new social network or biotech or whatever it is you're doing, and that uniqueness of what it is that makes your company run is what's most important to you, right? Every company's uniqueness is what's critical. Everything underneath that is where Optimum can kind of fit in. So I would say think of Optimum as a way to augment your current company, or your clients or customers' companies. So don't think you need to build everything from scratch, and don't think you need to sign up for 25 different applications just to get your daily life, your non-uniqueness daily life done.
Cool.